Today, I'm really excited to have Ms. Tobaccowala. When I came up with the idea for Evite, she was on my list of speakers I wanted to have. So the fact that she's here today is making me very excited. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So the workshop today will have 3 parts. We will do a Q&A, and you're welcome to ask her questions at the end of the Q&A. So if you have any, just feel free. And then the second part is going to be an activity where we will divide you into teams, and you will get to validate your ideas for a product, which I'm not really sure what that means, so we will find out.
Yeah. I'll walk you through it first before we...
And then the last thing is just food. I really like food, so that's what I'm looking forward to the most. So, again, thank you so much for coming. Can you just tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with STEM?
Sure. So I'll start with where I am now and then go backwards. But I think I mentioned I was a mother of 2. So I have a 6 and an almost 9-year-old. And right now I am the CEO and co-founder of a company called Gixo, which I'll talk to you about a little bit later. But I was somebody who was interested in technology from a really early age. So it's really nice to see, mostly, I guess there's only one. Is that your brother?
Yeah.
Oh, there's one boy. Okay. I've seen so many girls here. I got interested in technology very early. My father was in tech, and so kind of exposed us to computers and technology when I was really young. And I just got excited about this idea that you could build something, that you could make something, and you could code. And so even when I was like 11, 12, 13, my mom would drive me to all these different parts of New Jersey to take me to coding camp. And I didn't realize it then because it just felt normal, and it became the normal for me, but I was surrounded always by all boys. But it was something that I was always passionate about. And then when I was looking at colleges, I was back in New Jersey, and I said, okay, what's the best school for computer science? And it was Stanford. So I said, that's where I want to go. And so I, worked hard and had obviously some luck in that process and went to Stanford. And at the time at Stanford, it was very entrepreneurial. There were so many different companies that were starting. This was in 1997, 1998. So most of you were obviously not born. But the thing is that literally any word you could think of, stamps, pets, there was a website that was forming because this was the first beginning of the internet. And it was so interesting because even email, we were the first class at Stanford where everybody got email. And that sounds crazy because you guys are all texting and on your smartphones and everything. But it was a really big change. Even just keeping in touch with our high school friends. We were the first class that really kept really good in touch with our high school friends because we had email. But around us at that time, there were just company after company that was thinking, how can I sell something that has always been offline, like pets or stamps or the predecessor to all this Instacart and stuff. There's a company called Webvan. How can I take all this stuff and use technology to sell it to people directly? Amazon started at that time. Google started a little bit later. And so for me, coming out of school, I saw this huge opportunity to think, can I start a company? And so that's what I did. And I can tell you a little bit about that experience, but I started a company called Evite. I don't know how many of you guys have heard of it or used of it, but it's online invitations. And so the whole concept is that could you use technology to bring people together? And that is really been my passion through my whole career, is how to use technology to do something, make a change or do something for someone in the real world. And so we started Evite right out of school.
And what was it like, finishing school and then straight to a company?
It was this question of, is this the right thing to do? Should I start a company or should I not start a company? And, you guys are obviously, as you think about all decisions in your life and you think about, what do I want to do today? How do I want to spend my time? All of that is the same same thing I was thinking about is this what I want to do? And I remember this moment, and there was the Stanford job fair, and I was a senior in college, and I had already started the company. And I was like, should I go? Should I go to the job fair? And I called my father and I said, Dad, I don't know whether to go to the job fair. And he said, do you like working with Al? And that was my co-founder. And I said, yeah, it's great. And he said, are you learning? And I said, yeah, I'm learning a lot. And he said, are you excited about what you're building? And I was like, yeah. He said, then don't look back. And it was those things that literally through my whole years of both career and life, I think about, which is who am I spending my time with? So like, what are the people, whether that's work or personal or whatever, am I learning in that situation? And what do I want to be learning? And then the third piece of it is that, am I passionate about what I'm actually building and what I'm doing? And so it was those three things that I said, yeah, let's do this. And then we grew Evite for 4 years, and it was an amazing experience.
Yeah, I still use Evite to send my party invitations.
I'm glad.
It makes me really nervous though, because I can see right away who's opened it, but then they don't RSVP. I just feel bad.
I would like to say that when we started it, you could even see every single person's email address there, because at the time, there was no privacy or other things like that. And so you could even email people and be like, I saw you saw it.
Yeah, it's too stressful. And what is it like now, looking back and seeing how Evite's grown?
So, it's really exciting when you build something and people use it. And that is the thing I get most passionate about. There's millions and millions of Evites sent every day. Eventually, hopefully there'll be millions of people using our Gixo product. I worked at a company called SurveyMonkey for 6.5 years and was the president and chief technology officer there. And again, there were millions of people being touched every day to get people to hear people's voices, to listen to other people's feedback and make decisions. And so it was, and I'll give you one example there, because I hope some of you may see SurveyMonkey in your schools, your teachers might send it to your parents to get feedback or about an event. But one of the stories with that, and it again gives me this coming back to making sure you're passionate about what you're doing. There was this doctor's office, a children's doctor's office, that was using SurveyMonkey, children's hospital. And the doctor said, every time I went to the supply cabinet, I felt like the things I needed were missing. And he himself took it on himself and surveyed all the doctors and said, what are the products that you're actually using? And it just mismatched with what was getting ordered. Very simple thing, but it changed, he said it literally changed kids' outcomes because they got medicine faster. And so anytime, you're building a product, you have to think about who's using it, how they're using it, and how you can make impact. And that to me is what I get excited about. And
what did you work on while you were at SurveyMonkey?
So SurveyMonkey, one of the biggest things we did was we took the product all over the globe. So when I got there, it was just in the United States, and then we took it into dozens and dozens of countries, and we added a whole bunch of new products. So it was really, really a fun experience.
Yeah, my teachers use SurveyMonkey to have us survey how they're teaching, and I'm really grateful for the anonymous feature.
Yeah, the anonymous feature is important, so you can be truthful, but that makes everybody better. It's so important. Anything you're doing, anything I'm doing, is to ask people, how did I do? Because that's the only way you learn, and that's the only way you get better. And SurveyMonkey allows you to do that in a way that's anonymous and collect information and feedback. And when you start thinking about product development, it allows you to collect feedback from customers that are trying your product.
Yeah, and then now you're working on Gixo.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I'll tell you about Gixo, but I will talk about it a little bit as we go through the slides. In terms of how we came up with the product. But with Gixo, the product is live coached fitness classes right on your phone. And so, for us, we look at the gyms, the 24-hour fitness, the anytime fitness, and we see our product as the next generation of that.
And do you kind of see people being more accountable with their fitness and their goals?
Absolutely. And so when we started to look at the market in terms of the health and fitness market, and we'll talk about it a bit more, but when we started to look at the health and fitness market, we saw the fact that the main reason why people don't exercise, when you really, really start asking people, is because they find it boring. And so how can you make an experience that's interesting? And in this type of area, there's a lot of really fun experiences. There's SoulCycle, there's Barry's Boot Camp. You've probably passed some of those type of gym settings. And those are fun for people. But for most Americans, they're very, very expensive. It's $35 a class, and that's unaffordable for most of the United States. And so we saw an opportunity to use technology to give people that same type of experience, but for a much cheaper price and from anywhere. And that's what I get excited about, is can you use technology to give people access? When you think about almost all technology, what it's done, it continues to drive access. There's a website called Etsy, and it lets people from all over the world make products and then sell them to other people, and they've built that marketplace. And so it's created income for people in Brazil, in Africa, in Asia. And so the thing about technology, one of the most amazing things about technology is it lets you scale your idea to millions and millions of people. And that is something uniquely that technology can do.
Yep. And do you think then that we can scale our ideas to maybe have robots take over? I'd really like to see that happen.
So I have a belief system that technology, there are things that robots are good for. There's absolutely things robots are good for. They can make pizza. They can do a task that's repetitive over and over again. But the other thing with technology is it can be used to also help make the experience better, but help make a human more productive. And so when you think about and what that does by making a human more productive is what that does is it allows you to give the end customer that same product for a cheaper price. So an example is there's a company, and I'll talk about, I actually mentioned it a little bit, is Stitch Fix. And they send you a box of clothes, okay? And they have a personal stylist who is giving you those clothes. For most people, a personal stylist is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars, right? And they can't afford it. But people like the fact that if someone's helping you, I don't know what to wear. I mean, I'm wearing jeans and a t-shirt. Like, I never know what to wear. And so this idea that they could use technology, whether it's robots or machine learning or artificial intelligence, to make that stylist more effective. So instead of being able to style one person in 2 hours, which is what a normal stylist could do, they come to the store with you, they look at your clothes, they can style 6 people in an hour. That means that you can access that stylist for a much cheaper price. And so when I think about robots and artificial intelligence, when you think about a pure robot, it's a question of, can that robot do something that's repetitive, and how much can they learn? So with a self-driving car, right? It's like you have a self-driving car that can keep learning. It needs to learn its environment. And so there's a question of how far can that technology get you? But where are experiences where you still want that human touch? Whether that's the doctor, whether that's the fitness instructor, whether that's the real estate broker. Those are all the different things where, I don't believe the philosophy that robots are going to take over the world. I believe that what robots will do will take the jobs away that are repetitive and let humans actually provide more service and care for other humans.
I just don't want to see robots take over. I think it would be very interesting.
Might be interesting, but
it'll definitely be good, but it won't be fun. And what is it like for you working in STEM when it's such a male-dominated field? Do you find yourself struggling?
So, as I said, when I started being in tech and coding and stuff when I was 10 and 11 years old, and I was always surrounded by boys. And I never thought anything different of it because it was all that I knew. And it never occurred to me that, like, oh, why aren't there more girls here? I was a little bit of a tomboy. I was always like, and so, when in my career, it never occurred to me that there was a problem. And so until I was much older. And so I just kept working hard and not realizing that the negative impact of not having more girls in STEM. And when you start thinking about the negative impacts, it's things about like how products are even built. And so whether it's like, you think most buyers of any products are women, and yet the products aren't being designed by women. And so that's where you start to think about how there's constant, why it's important to have more women in STEM and why it's like exciting to see more women getting into it. But I would say that I've had amazing mentors that are both men and women in my career, and it's finding the right people who are going to help you and who are going to be your allies. And then as you find people that, and I think it's also the responsibility is if you see another girl or you see another woman not being treated well, is that you also stand up for them. And that's something that I've learned in my career.
And what do you do when you find yourself struggling or questioning yourself whether you're capable of doing something?
I think that's when you call other people and say, oh my God, I'm hitting this issue, I'm hitting this wall, and talk me through it. And that's where you have to feel comfortable reaching out and asking for help. And everybody needs help, and that's not a bad thing.
Definitely. And what role has confidence played in your success?
I think that confidence becomes important in willingness to speak your mind. If you're confident, you'll speak up. And unfortunately, or fortunately, however, when you think about and I'm sure it's the same in school settings, but in a business setting especially, that people can't read your mind. And so if you're not willing to speak up, you're not willing to be heard. And so it's really important that you have that confidence to speak up and you have that confidence to express yourself. You might be wrong sometimes, and that's fine. Like, you can only learn by making mistakes. And so I think that having that confidence to speak my voice has helped me in my career.
Awesome. Do you girls have any questions?
All right.
Okay, well, keep thinking.
And so should we go in? Okay, go ahead.
I'll ask you, maybe you guys can think for a couple of minutes, and then we can come back. What's your favorite food?
My favorite food?
Yeah.
My mom's shrimp curry. My mom is an amazing cook, and I'm a terrible cook. So every time she comes, she makes me shrimp curry.
And what's your favorite thing to do on a weekend?
Go on a walk with my kids.
That's
go on a hike
awesome.
or walk with my kids.
That's good.
So
Exercise.
And see something beautiful.
Do you use Gixo? Do you use
I use the product at least four times a week, and it's completely changed my health.
Really?
Yeah. So I didn't exercise for a long period.
Do you have other hobbies?
Other hobbies? So when you're starting a company and you have 2 children, there's not lots of time for hobbies, to be very honest. But I love to read. And right now we're deep in the Harry Potter series. So I finished book 6 last night after my kids went to bed because I wanted to find out what happened. And we love to travel. So try to take us somewhere. We try to go somewhere fun. Go ahead.
Where's your favorite place?
Favorite place in the world? I would say my favorite place I've ever been to was Cairo in Egypt, because you see those pyramids and you see what people were able to do with the technology of their time, and it was so inspiring when you see what they were able to build without even tools. It inspires you to think how great and what you can achieve. So I loved it.
Are they as big as they look in the pictures?
They are as big as they look in the pictures.
So what do you think the most successful company you have out of the 3 of them?
So the most successful company from a amount of money it earns is SurveyMonkey. The most successful company, I would say, in terms of the people, I would probably guess Evite has touched more people, but it has a worse business. It has a worse business model than SurveyMonkey.
Yeah.
How did you get the inspiration for the company?
So so SurveyMonkey I didn't start. But with Evite and Gixo, I'll tell you. So with Evite, we got the inspiration because we saw this. Actually, I had the first Evite ever was my indoor soccer team, and I'm a terrible athlete, which I'm very clumsy, but I always loved team sports. So we had this. We were graduating from Stanford, and we were doing this indoor soccer team, and that was the very, very first Evite ever. And it was just this idea of, it was so hard to get everyone to find out who was coming to the game, and so that was really just the inspiration. And then with Gixo, I hadn't exercised for 6.5 years. Someone very, very close to me actually passed away very young. He's the CEO of SurveyMonkey, and it really inspired me to think about health and wellness, and to think about, wait, how can I help myself be more fit? And when I started to look at what was out there, I was like, I can't be the only one who has this problem, that I don't want to spend $35 in an hour and a half at this class. How can we make it more accessible? And that's what inspired me to start Gixo. So, bad things happen in your life, good things happen in your life, and all of that can lead to inspiration.
Out of the three, which one is your favorite to work?
Favorite. Mother, what's their favorite child?
Wow, they've just, whenever they've been amazing. I would say whenever I got to, and I had a job in between. I worked at Ticketmaster as well for a number of years in London. I moved to London and I lived there for 4 years. And whenever I got to a point in my job where I either wasn't working with great people, or I wasn't learning, and then I left. And so I've had the fortune of never being at a job that I haven't loved. And that is luck, and that is fortune, because it's a privilege, because not a lot of people have that privilege.
When did you start working at SurveyMonkey?
I moved, so I went to London in 2005 and worked at Ticketmaster for 4 years, where we help people get access to shows, which was fun. And I moved here back from London in 2009, and I moved with a baby in my belly, so it was a fun experience to come back here.
Yeah. How did you become friends with the CEO of SurveyMonkey?
Just by working there. I met him initially through another friend who said, hey, this is somebody you should try and hire. And so he brought me onto the team. But then we just became close, because when you have a colleague that you work very closely with them, and you get to know them well. And and it is that. I learned a ton from him.
What day did you come back?
From London?
The day.
I came back on October 17th, and I don't know why I remember that. October 17th, 2009, and then I started work that Monday, October 19th, 2009. So I flew with 3 suitcases, and that was all I had. And then I started my job. Oh, okay. Exactly. That's pretty cool.
Did you have a question? No? Yeah.
What challenges have you faced while starting up your company?
So the hardest challenge, and actually I'll talk about this a bit, so maybe we can jump into it. The hardest challenges generally is how you reach the right customer, how you reach the right person who's going to use the product. So let me start walking through it. And this is the thing, there's some words in there that might be big or confusing or whatever. Just raise your hand and ask me questions. I've tried to explain it with examples. But what I want you guys to think about, and the activity will be about designing a product. But the thing about building a company or building a product or a service, it doesn't have to be a product, it can be a service, is there's a number of things you need to think about when you're saying, is this something that I want to make? Is this something I want to put my time into? Whether it's a lemonade stand, whether it's anything that you're trying to build over time. And so I'm going to give you some examples from some companies. But the first question is, what is the problem you're trying to solve? You always need to think about, why would someone use my product? And so I just gave this example. I have all examples of amazing women founder companies, but this is Katrina Lake. She founded this company called Stitch Fix, which I mentioned prior. And the problem she saw was that people like to buy stuff online. The move, I'm sure many of you see Amazon packages coming to your doorstep, right? And so people like to buy stuff online. But with clothing, they also liked to the clothes to fit well. And it's hard when you're just buying something online in a picture to make sure that they fit well. So she saw this opportunity where she said, how can you marry this ease of online shopping with what people want in clothes, which is fit and style? So that's the first thing you should always think about is, what is the problem I'm trying to solve? Like, if you have a lemonade stand, you're trying to solve the fact that people are walking by thirsty, right? And so think about, what is that problem whenever you're thinking about a product. The second question is, who is going to buy the product? And so this is another amazing woman, Julia Hartz. So she's the CEO of this company called Eventbrite. And what they do is they sell to event coordinators. So let's say this was a ticketed event. Then Maneth would be the event coordinator, and you guys would be the people buying the tickets for the event. And so she said, I'm not trying to do birthday parties, because that's Evite. I'm not trying to do Taylor Swift at Madison Square Garden, because that's Ticketmaster. But I'm trying to do everything in the middle. So the first thing is who is your customer? Who are you trying to get to buy your product? So again, going back to that lemonade stand, the person you're trying to get that product is potentially just the person passing by. So who is the customer? Then the third piece is, how big is that market? How many people fit in that scenario? So this is another amazing woman, Adi Tatarko, the CEO and co-founder of a company called House. And what House has is they have beautiful pictures about your home, your different room styles. So you guys could go look if you wanted to see, what would be like the most amazing kid's bedroom. And you can go on and you can look at all the different bedrooms. And so she was trying to take this business, which was offline, construction workers, design people, and say they spend $1.2 trillion on buying all this stuff offline. I'm going to help move that online. So that was, again, a question that there was enough people and the market is big enough that you can sell your product. And so that's another thing to think about, which is, who's going to buy it? And are there enough of those people? So that's kind of when you're thinking about product. And so then and I'll show you a quick 1-minute video, but who's the competition? So what is already out there? So if you're selling a lemonade stand and there's another kid selling another lemonade stand right next to you, why is your lemonade different from that other kid? What do you have that's going to make your lemonade unique, right? Is it that it's strawberry lemonade? Is it that it's a cheaper price? Like, what are you doing that's going to make it unique? So I'm going to show you this quick. It's actually a commercial, but it's pretty cool, assuming it'll play.
The world tells you to wait. That waiting is polite, and good things will just come. But if I waited to be invited in, I never would have stood out. If I waited for change to happen, I never would have made a difference. So make the first move. Don't wait to be told your place. Take it. Don't wait for people to find you. Find them. In work. In love. In life. And most of all, don't wait to be given power. Because here's what they won't tell you. We already have it.
So this is an ad for actually a company called Bumble. And hopefully you guys are all too young for this, but it's a dating app. But the interesting thing about this, and this again is this amazing woman CEO and co-founder, but when she launched her business, there were dozens and dozens of dating apps. And there were dating apps that were already doing really, really well. They had millions and millions and millions of users already. And so she was going to add a dating app into here and was like, okay, but what could she do that was different? And she made one difference in her app, one major difference, which is that a boy or a man could never contact the girl or the woman. Only the woman could make that first contact. And that was her only difference that she made. But she stood by it and said, I'm going to empower the women to make the decision. And she has now built the second largest dating app company, even though she started 4 years after the average other person. So she built something. She took, the market was crowded, there were a lot of customers, but she built something that was unique and special. And so so when you think about it and you think about product development, you have to think about what can I do that's unique and special to solve that problem. So that is just some background of like how you think about product development. And so, sorry, I don't want to play that again. And then so let's assume then you have a product. You said, okay, I've built my product, I've made my lemonade. How am I going to test if it's good? Obviously with your lemonade stand, you're probably asking your little brother, here, come try this. Does this taste good, right? Do I put the right amount of sugar? Have I put the right amount of lemons? And so you have to think about, how am I going to test my product? If I have an idea, I want to design something, I want to make a new toothbrush, I want to make a new kid's shirt, how am I going to test it? And so with Gixo, so as I mentioned with Gixo, the product is the fact that there is a live coach who is coaching you through a fitness class. There's 15-minute classes, there's 25-minute classes, there's strength training, so they're asking you to do squats, there's walking and running classes, so you're going outside. But the thing that we were really unsure of is, would it be super weird to have a stranger, this coach, either watching you inside or in your ear live being like, hey, Manat, you can do it, keep going. Is that weird? Would people find that strange that there was this voice in their ear? And so before we did anything else, we built just that single class experience without anything else. And then we asked hundreds of people from all over to say, can you try this? And obviously you have to offer them something to try it. But we said, can you try this? And when those people came back, and then we surveyed them with SurveyMonkey, and I talked to all of them, and they came back and said, wow, that was a great experience. So we took our biggest risk and said, how do you test it? And so the things that we were going to do today was, I was going to lay out a problem. So the problem we're trying to solve is get kids to move. Only 22% of 16 and 19-year-old children and adolescents move for 60 minutes or more at 5 days per week. If you move, if we can change this, it massively affects grades, attendance, memory, concentration, and classroom behavior. And so the question is, what can we do to get people to move? Where is mine? Oh, sorry, can I jump and just grab those from behind you? Okay. So there's a bunch of facts, and I thought we could put these up. But there's a bunch of facts, and you can tell which ones were my daughter's handwriting, so. But there's a bunch of facts that you have to think about. So whenever you're thinking about a product, you have to think about, what do people have access to? What is gonna work? And so let's think about some of those things. So the first question is smartphones. So that's one way you could reach people, right, to move. 45% of kids who are 8 to 11 have a smartphone. So you have to think about that in terms of when we're thinking about the population. Meanwhile, 90% of kids 11 through 18 have a smartphone. So this is something that, because we're going to break into groups and you guys are going to brainstorm product ideas to help solve the problem of getting kids to move. So, most important factor in keeping people active is making it fun. So tied to that, so think about ways you might be able to make activity fun. And remember, team sports aren't for everybody because a lot of places offer team sports. And an example of that is, how many of you guys have heard of Pokemon Go? Anybody? Okay, so Pokemon Go is this app on your phone where you walk around and you collect objects. Pokemon Go, for people that used it, it increased steps 2,000 steps per day because it was fun. You were walking around, you were collecting objects. So think about a product where you might, and this is one idea, where you might be able to invoke fun. A second type of business, has anyone heard of a business called Tom's Shoes? Does anyone bought Tom's Shoes before? Okay, so Tom's Shoes does something interesting. When you buy a pair of shoes, they give a pair of shoes. Right? So another way you could think about solving this problem is, how can we get potentially more money for schools for PE? because in the United States, only 48% of schools have PE. 48%. If you can get PE into schools, kids who have PE are 2 to 3 times more likely to be active outside school. So another thing you guys can think about is, how could we get money into schools so more schools across the United States could have PE? And maybe it has nothing to do with, maybe it's like you're selling a pair of shoes and you're giving money to PE. So that's another way to think about it. But you have to inspire still a product that would inspire people. Another thing that's interesting is the importance of community. So does anyone play team sports? So when you play team sports, what other thing makes it fun? Is it
Being part of a team.
It's being part of a team. It's your teammates. All the data shows, if you have somebody to exercise with or move with, you are much more likely to do more, which is obviously like when we did Gixo, you have a virtual community to move with, right? And then the other factor is, you don't have to think about movement as just the fact that I'm going to go out and I'm going to run for 20 minutes. Everyday activity counts as movement. What if we got kids to garden or clean their rooms? That would solve 2 problems at once, right? Go for walks, right? And maybe go for walks and learn something about their walks. Maybe they could listen to information about their homework. So all of that counts as getting people to move. So the products that you think of could be getting people to do everyday activities. So these are just some ideas, which is, thinking about, we talked about people have smartphones and Pokemon Go. We talked about getting money into PE for schools. We talked about creating community for people so they're more likely to move. And we talked about everyday activities. These are just some ideas, and we can hang this stuff up. So the idea is, what time is it? How long do we want to give people?
10, we can give people like 45 minutes.
Yeah, or even 30 minutes so we can share them. Yeah. So the first thing we are going to do is break into groups, and you guys, and I don't know if maybe you can just split them, but maybe let's take about 20 minutes and brainstorm a couple of product ideas about what you might do to help solve this problem. You're all in this age group. Some of you might even fit into the groups that don't move enough, right? So think about what product you might design to help kids move. And then what we'll do is we'll share out some of those ideas, and then we'll spend 10 minutes and we'll brainstorm, how could you test your product? Who could you get to try it out to validate that it's solving the problem? And if anybody has any questions, hopefully it'll be a fun activity, but if anybody has any questions or thoughts before we start, otherwise we'll break into groups. Does anyone have any questions? How to do it? And so we have poster boards and we have Post-it notes. And remember, when you're brainstorming product ideas, is any idea a bad idea? No. So put out any ideas. And so just let's right now, we'll spend 10 to 15 minutes, and the first 10 to 15 minutes is about brainstorming those ideas. Then we'll talk about how we might market test some of those ideas. So just brainstorm. We'll pick a couple in each group to kind of go through and market test. Does that sound good, interesting? Hopefully. Okay.